gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this webinar, the Young Professional Cameroonian Mentorship. It's a new scheme, a response by CamDocUK to recent incessant requests from parents, young people, recent graduates, who it became obvious to us that there was a need to create an enabler platform where people will get informed about career options, and also to create linkages between those who are already doing well in those professions, in the various professions, linkage between them and those who are aspiring to go into those professions. So this is the inaugural session, and this inaugural session will be chaired by, it's being moderated by myself, Chief Asa'ah. As you've seen in the flyer, which has gone worldwide, I am a clinical scientist. I'm a public health consultant. Here, Chief Asa'ah, because yes, I am also a traditional ruler from my native Bangwa in Cameroon. I will be assisted by Dr. Anna Mbene. Dr. Anna Mbene is I should say that I'm also the head of international affairs at Cameroonian Doctors UK. So Dr. Anna Mbene is the treasurer as well as the communication secretary of the Cameroonian Doctors in the UK, an association of doctors, dentists, health professionals in the UK. Dr. Anna Mbene is my co-moderator for today, and at some point she will take over the platform to address questions that are actually coming through. So as the webinar progresses, please visit the Q&A section and leave whatever questions you have, any comments you like to make. This is being monitored. We've also got a team of other CamDoc members in the background. We've got Dr. Eugenie Mempo, who is the membership secretary of CamDocUK. And of course, the chair of the association, the president, Dr. Linda Bello, is also on panel. I just need to point out that this is not, well, Linda is waving there. This is not just for doctors. It just happens that CamDocUK will, the organization that was approached, and so this was created as a response to the public. But over the time being of this initiative, we're going to see all sorts of professions who will be giving the avenue here to essentially sell themselves to the various those who are interested, who will be dialing in. So today, we're going to start with three eminent panelists. The three eminent panelists will each have 15 minutes to present their particular profession, their sector of work. And we have themed it in such a way that each panel will try to answer three things: who they are, what they do, how did they get into that profession, while in that profession, what are the highlights of their time being in that profession? What are some of the challenges? What are the wonderful moments in that profession? So this will be within 15 minutes. After each of the three panelists have spoken, we will then move into the Q&A section, which is effectively an open house. So we're going to give everyone the chance to ask. The hope is that you will go away having created, you've got a lot of information as to the young ones, the parents, the new graduates who also get some information as to how some orienteering direction for their career, but at the same time, opportunity to create links with each of the panels that you've heard speak. If you want to create mentorship links, we can now facilitate that. And we just want to also point out that while you're on this, if you think of any other professional sector that you would like to know a little bit about, let us know. We can then arrange to make sure that in future panels, we're going to have somebody from that particular sector to address us. So please, it is something for the community. We are in this all together. So it is CamDoc's offer to the community. Is for all of us to make use of it. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the very first panelist for today. Is going to be Dr. Sandrine Djoumessi. And Dr. Sandrine Djoumessi is a GP doctor. Sandrine is one of the early members of CamDocUK who has been quite keen on this idea of mentoring young people in a direction of career-wise. So, and Sandrine is a GP doctor with a special interest in cardiology. I will let Sandrine to speak for herself. So, Dr. Sandrine Djoumessi, you've got the microphone.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for having me this evening. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be on this panel. So I am a general practitioner. We're going to speak about the profession of a GP. GP stands for general practitioner. So I'm just going to share my screen. Just bear with me, if that's okay. So yes, what is a GP? A GP is a medical doctor who's a consultant in primary care. GP assess, diagnose, and treat patients in all age groups. So we see pregnant women, we see children, we see adolescents, middle-aged women and men, and we see elderly people. So we are involved in child health, palliative care, mental health, sexual health, family planning, so you name it. So the spectrum is broad. In the UK, the GPs are kind of the gatekeeper of the NHS. So we do not have, like in other countries, we do not have other specialties in the community who have surgeries. So only GP have surgeries in the community. And if all patients need to go to see a GP, they will then be assessed. And if they need a specialist assessment, they will be referred to the specialist in secondary care by the GP. Right. What is the path to become a GP? You've got to have, completed medical school. After medical school in the UK, all graduates do a 2-year foundation program. And then after that, they decide to apply for a specialty, either to become a GP or to become a secondary care consultant. In the UK, the GP training is a specialist training which lasts 3 years. So how to get into the GP training? So you've got to do an electronic application. You need to be fully registered with the GMC and have a license to practice. As I said before, you need to have 2 years clinical experience. In the UK, it's the foundation year program. So you need to be able to provide competencies for the foundation year 2 program. So if you've done the 2 clinical years abroad, you will still be able to provide these competencies. There's a kind of equivalence for that. So when you've done your application and it's complete, then you will be invited to sit a computerized exam, which consists of multiple choice questions. So if you pass that exam, then you will be invited into a center to sit a kind of an exam which consists in pre-simulated consultations and to write an essay as well. If you pass all those exams, then you will enter the GP training. Right. Once you've entered the GP training, what happened? It lasts 3 years, as I said. The first 2 years, the GP trainee rotate in different hospital specialties. They have placements lasting from 4 months to 6 months in those specialties. In the first year, they do a placement in the GP surgery, again lasting for 4 to 6 months. In the second year, they do another one in the GP surgery. And the last years, they spend 12 months in the GP surgery. So now, to become a member of the Royal College of GP, you need to have passed the workplace-based assessments, to have sat an exam, which is called the AKT, and to have passed the clinical skills, the clinical assessment skills, which is currently the recorded consultation assessment. Once you've passed all those exams and completed a portfolio from the Royal College of GP. Then you obtain what we call a CCT, which is a certificate of completion of training. That's what you need to be able to work as a GP. Now, general practice is known for its flexibilities. So when you're a GP, you're able to kind of rearrange the way you work a bit easier than in other specialties. So you can choose to be a salaried GP, you can choose to be a GP partner, owning your business, you can choose to be a portfolio GP. Portfolio GPs are GPs that have different roles, several roles basically. So for portfolio GPs, the opportunities are endless. So you can be involved in medical education, you can be a GP trainer, a GP appraiser, you can be a GP with special interests, just like I am. I'm a GP with special interest in cardiology. You can be involved or you can work in management, leadership role. You can be a forensic medical examiner, work in the media, just to name the few. Right, we've talked a little bit generally about GPs. I just want to talk a bit about myself, my journey. I did my A-level in Cameroon, then went to Germany. I studied medical school there. When I graduate, I work in internal medicine for 2 years in view of specializing in cardiology. Then family and marriage took me to the UK. When I arrived in the UK, I worked in London for a few years in A&E and pediatrics, and then decided to apply for the GP training. I trained in Leicestershire, in Leicester. That's where I met Dr. Nafti Osric from CamDocUK, who introduced me to the association. So I completed my training in 2015 and became a member of the Royal College of GP. So I've been a GP for 10 years, basically, mainly in the area of Colchester. So after the training, I worked as a locum GP for a few years. This was very important to me because it gave me the flexibility to be able to look after my family, to look after my children, to be really involved in their education. A locum GP is a GP that is actually not employed. It's a GP who is self-employed and then will provide their services to different surgeries or to different organizations, basically. So when my youngest went to secondary school, I was a little bit more stable, so I was able to take on a role as a GP partner, and I did work as a GP partner for 5 years until November 2024, when I decided to rearrange myself differently, and I will explain a little bit later. Whilst I was working as a locum GP, I did a postgraduate diploma in cardiology and basically got involved with the cardiology community services in my local hospital. And I've been working there as a GP with a special interest in cardiology for the last 3 years. Now, let us get a bit practical because it's all good to talk about, medical school, training, and so on. But what really happened on a day-to-day basis? So how does my day look like when I work as a GP, NHSD GP? So I start my surgeries at 8:30. The morning surgeries from 8:30 to 12:30. I will see roughly 15 to 18 patients, 10 minutes appointment per patient. The afternoon will start from 3 to 5:30, and we will have about 12 to 15 patients, again 10-minute appointment per patient. And between those morning and afternoon surgeries, I can have home visits, which means that we sometimes go to visit patients who are housebound, who are not mobile, or who are very unwell, or I will have meetings, or I will have admin works. Admin work generally, it can be admin generated by myself, so I might need to write letters to the hospital, or it can be queries generated by other healthcare professionals. So usually most GP will overrun their clinics because, as you can imagine, 10 minutes is not long. So if you have a frail elderly patient who need to move from the waiting room to the consultation room, sometimes it can take already 5 minutes. By the time they're sitting down, you just have 5 minutes left, right? You will overrun. So mental health consultation, they usually need 20 minutes and so on. So we will overrun our clinics, and most people don't leave on time, and we do have laptop to be able to continue the admin that we did not finish during the day. So my day looked different when I work as a GP with a special interest in cardiology. My morning surgery basically will be starting at 9, finishing at 1. I have longer appointments, 30 to 45 minutes. I do comprehensive specialist assessment in patients with complex conditions. It's kind of a bit of a different type of work. But I've got to say that being a GP has helped me a lot because I'm able to assess these patients a little bit more in a holistic manner, better compared to my colleagues, consultant cardiologists. So in the afternoon, I will then basically do follow-up telephone calls, triage, and support the heart failure nurses. I also work as a private GP. That is kind of a very different type of work. The clientele is very different to the NHS clientele. They are patients that are self-funding. They have private insurance. They also have a better health literacy. And you notice that they come more for preventative medicine. They can be very demanding. Yes, it's innovative, it's exciting, it's very interesting. So from a clinician perspective, I will say that I'm able to be a little bit free in my management. I'm not limited by NICE guidelines, because the NICE guidelines generally, are a little bit more careful about the cost. So I'm able to request certain investigations, which I wouldn't be able to request in the NHS so easily. So I'm also an associate clinical lecturer in the medical school in Anglia Ruskin University. I have a group of students that I mentor, support, provide pastoral care. We meet every 3 months. For people who know me, they know me. I've been passionate. I've always been passionate about mentoring. So I started this role recently, and I'm enjoying it thoroughly. So these are my roles that we discussed. So if we want to talk about the challenges of being a GP, so GP have a heavy workload. The volume of patient is huge. They have long hours, just as most people working in the NHS currently, I think. They are assessing complex patient in 10 minutes. The patient can be very difficult. The pressure is huge. They have to cope with a lot of stress. They have a lot of complaints sometimes coming their way. And we've got to say that GPs in the UK do not really have a good press. The press is not very kind to them. That's probably due to the fact that the access to GPs is quite difficult. Patient call, they struggle to get the appointment. They might be waiting for weeks, and then when they get the appointment, it's 10 minutes. They cannot discuss several issues. So that leads to frustrations. So, and you can imagine that that doesn't end very well. Well, overall, being a GP is rewarding. I do enjoy my role, but it can be very challenging. However, we need to make sure that we are, being proactive, seeking support when we need it, so that we can actually navigate these challenges and thrive in our career. So it's important to remember to prioritize self-care and work-life balance in order to avoid burnout. Right, this is just an estimate for the income of GPs who do traditional roles. GP partners can earn 130K to 200K per annum. This is, again, just an estimate. It can be less, it can be more, depending on how efficient and healthy the finances of a surgery are, or if they are providing different services. So salary GP can earn 71 to 132K. Again, it's just an estimate per annum. It can be less, can be more. It varies depending the area. So we have to mention here, jobs have become a little bit more difficult to find recently. However, I hope that this is something that will change in the future. The income of a portfolio GP is difficult to estimate because it will depend on their different roles, and it will depend on the experience as well. The journey starts very early, as you probably imagine. So I think how to get into medical school is probably a topic that we will have to put on one of our future webinar, Chief. This is very important that we discuss how to get to medical school. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Fantastic presentation, Sandrine, in her elements as usual. Those of us who know her, passionate about mentorship, as she said herself. I think I should quickly, before anything, make a few points of announcement, really, that the slides that we are being shown today, with the permission of the authors, we will load these slides on the CamDocUK website so that people can equally access them after this webinar. And then feel free, when we do that, we'll let the public know. I want to also say that, as Sandrine finishing did mention, what we've been hearing here is somebody who is already a doctor and going through specialization. And Sandrine did say that because we're looking at this whole initiative of the mentorship, we're looking at even those who are still preparing to go to university. So at some point, we will do a particular webinar session on essentially getting you into medical school. So just to reassure, as Sandrine herself did say, we're looking into that as well. There's a whole range of topics going to cover, not just medical. It's a whole a range of career areas. As some of them come from you yourself, the viewers, you might say to us, this is what you would like to know a little bit about, and we include that in our next in our future webinars. So, as I said earlier, we will try and get these three speakers to speak first, and then we have an open house. But a burning question, which is I would just like to find out from Sandrine is, I suppose, what maybe you want to do a general session, but because for career reasons, somebody thinking of specializing in this, the quest in this sort of sector that you just fantastically explained to us, somebody might be saying that, what with this AI thing nowadays, where does that leave me? Do I go down this road? What do you see the future of AI impacting your sector?
Yes, I think we have to welcome AI. We have to embrace AI, to be honest. It's very helpful for a clinician. It can help you associate different symptoms and come to and suggest different differential diagnosis to yourself. But what it cannot do is to actually assess that patient holistically, understand where the patient is in their journey, and take the patient with you. Right? The agenda of the patient is generally not the doctor agenda most of the time. So really, AI will not be able to replace the GP or the doctor generally. AI will be able to help and facilitate the work of the GP. And for the patients who have a really good health literacy, it will be very helpful. For those who do not, it might cause more anxiety than anything else. I hope I've answered your question.
Wonderful. Like I said, we're going to go to an open floor. Let's get all the speakers to go through their rounds. Then we have an open floor. And at that point, Dr. Mbene, who is actually monitoring, will come up with some of the questions that you throw on the Q&A section. I can see Dr. Bello is also doing a fantastic job with Dr. Eugenie Mempo. They're all looking at your questions. So keep the questions coming. And thank you very much, Sandrine. I'm particularly very impressed with how open you gave us information. This is what we need for this kind of career session. It even went as far as telling indicative salaries. This is what, so that people should have all the information to make up their mind. Is this sort of sector I want to go into? So thank you very much. And please don't go, stay, because you're going to come back to the general session. And we want to move on to the next speaker. The next speaker is Professor Florence Ayisi. Professor Florence Ayisi is a professor of international documentary film and, in fact, professional media at the University of Cardiff in the United Kingdom. I need to point out that it seems people might think that why are we only picking people from the UK? We are hoping that some of the avenues will actually be applicable well outside the UK. But we also want to reassure people that we're going to have speakers who will join this panel in future panels from outside the UK as well. So not just going to be UK centric. But now, anyone who has watched British television would have sometimes seen documentaries on Cameroon. A lot of the time, these documentaries would have had the hand of this lady who is coming, the next speaker. I remember Channel 4, those of us came to this country some years back. We were very excited to see Cameroon documentary on TV, and it turned out that Florence had a hand in it. I say Florence because Florence and myself, we go back to childhood, grew up together in the station, Kumba Station in Cameroon. So, but this is not a matter of brother and sister. So this is a global webinar. So Professor Florence Ayisi, Professor of Media at Cardiff University, you've got a microphone.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can.
Yes, we can hear you.
Right, thank you. Okay, this is a privilege to be here. I know maybe because it's CamDoc, there will be many people who are coming for science, you know, for medical stuff. Maybe I'm the kind of odd one in the mix, but I'm happy to be here. But I'm hoping that as Dr. Djoumessi has explained her profession, and nowadays, there's something they call interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. So, for example, Dr. Sandrine Djoumessi and I can collaborate. We can bring her profession together, bring mine together, and produce something. So, if anybody is here who is thinking that why is this lady talking where mostly they are medical doctors or they're science? Nowadays, you cannot even get funding in the UK without being, well, maybe predominantly without having interdisciplinary work. So my name is Florence. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to use slides, but I'm happy to provide these slides later on. As somebody who works with visual stuff, I usually like to show my work. Maybe it will be another session where I'll show small examples. But when I finish speaking, I'm going to put some links that those who are interested can have a look, can use the links to just have a look and have a taste of some of the things that I do. So I will always want to say that where I come from, I'm a Kumba girl. For those, if there are people here who are Cameroonians, I'm Kumba. So my journey started there. But let me just start talking through my slides first. I've called my session Telling Stories That Matter. Why does it matter? I am now in the diaspora context, and my journey in this whole process of being a filmmaker, a university lecturer, is so crucial within the context of being in the diaspora. So I'm a professor of documentary, international documentary at the University of South Wales, and my campus is based in Cardiff. I teach and I make documentary films as part of my research. So what I'm engaged in is creative practice research, where I'm using film, not as just to observe the world, but to see how I can change how the world is seen. Maybe later on, I can explain a bit about that. Predominantly, as we all know, universities are there for teaching. The research is an important part of that. Entrepreneurship is also an important mission of universities. So my job as a professor, I'm not a professor because I teach at the university. I'm a professor because of the kind of research that I do. So teaching is at the moment, for the past 10 years, teaching is very minimal. Most of the things I do is research, creative practice research. I make documentary films as part of my research. So I use film as a method of knowledge making, and I'm centering a lot of my work, being an African, but also being in the diaspora and also being a woman. That is my positionality as an academic and also a researcher, creative practice research, using documentary film as a tool. Maybe I should just explain briefly that in the creative industries, which is filmmaking is part of it, my passion is documentary filmmaking. There is fiction as well, there's animation, but I do documentaries. And in my faculty of creative industries, we have animation, we have music technology, we have special effects, we have drama, we have fashion, all the kind of creative things that you can think about. That's what my faculty has as many things. But for me, it's always really important that I say to people that my mission as a researcher, as a teacher, as a filmmaker, is my agenda unapologetically is to decolonize the images and challenge dominant perspectives about how we are as Africans. That's what I do. And filmmaking, documentary filmmaking, is a really strong part of that. You have to see it, to believe it, and to know it, and to be it, and to meet the people. That's why I use film as a tool to listen, but also as a tool for resistance, resisting the kind of knowledge systems that are produced about Africa. When I first came to the UK in the 80s, I was absolutely shocked about what I saw in terms of how African Black people are represented in the media. So I use film as a way to challenge these dominant narratives, but I must stress the fact that it's documentary filmmaking, which is about real lives, real people, real stories, where I'm trying really hard to make the unseen visible and the unheard voices to be heard. I like to think about the fact that visibility and agency, the question of agency, is really, really important here. And if I'm using words that people who are interested, listeners or people who are on in the meeting are not familiar with, I'm happy to explain that during questioning. So for me, why film? Filmmaking is about witnessing, resisting, and also reclaiming the space, because the way that we Africans have been represented in Western media is part of that historical thing about colonialism, slavery, and the kind of domination, imperialism. So part of my stories are, part of my filmmaking is to reclaim, to find a way that people can be seen as they are, not as how others see them. When I mean the others, the people who are not Africans, because a lot of time is very reductive images. How did I get here? So I did an undergraduate degree in Cameroon, in Ngah, as they call it, in English, and I did theater and drama as electives, that's secondary subjects. And so it's so crucial to not forget the fact that with every profession, you have to study, you have to learn. But that doesn't mean that filmmaking is one of those things that there are many filmmakers today who haven't been to formal education. And that's not a problem. But what I can say is, if there's any young people out there who are interested in telling stories, because we all have stories wherever we come from, we have stories to tell. And depending on how you are, where you are, you have to choose how you want to tell those stories. But formal education, how to get into this career, is formal education is so important. Whether you study philosophy or biology or chemistry or painting or visual arts, it doesn't matter, but to have a formal education and understand the world that you live in, because it is only when you understand that world that you can tell the stories about it. And filmmaking for me, and I think for all the students that I talk to who come to the place, is a means to an end. The camera is only a means to an end. You must have something you want to say about the world. As I started saying, I want to say things about Africa, African people, especially African women. I've made a lot of documentaries about women in Africa, their lived experiences, their passion, their challenges, their resilience, their well-being. you have to have something to say. And so I think we all believe, being that we are on this platform as educated people who can read and write, I strongly believe that formal education in anything you want to do that you're interested in is so crucial. So in my subject area, if you want to get into it, or if you're already somewhere there, you can have a science background, but you can still do a master's. You can have a law background, but you can still have some studies in media, in cultural studies, in film studies. But I think the key thing is, I say to people who come to, young people who come for open days, I say to people who want to do PhDs, masters, is to have that passion, but also have a purpose. That kind of political awareness, social awareness, economic awareness, environmental awareness, but also have this kind of deep development in technical and critical skills. And you may want to ask yourself, what do you want to do with what you're doing? What do you want to do with film? What does it mean? Because the camera itself doesn't say anything. It's how you use the camera to picture the world. So there's not really one way to get into film. As I said earlier, a lot of filmmakers, or some filmmakers, don't have any kind of formal education in media studies in films. That I can give you an example. There's a filmmaker called, there's one in Cameroon as well. I'm not going to mention the name, but there's one in the USA. He did law. And what he was so mad about was the injustices. So one of the things that I'm passionate about is social justice. And whether that's social justice doesn't mean I'm going to the courts, but about how some voices that have been kept silent, some images, the way that people are represented, has to emerge in a way that they see themselves. So this filmmaker who's made over 40 documentary films, he did law, but he wasn't happy with institutions, with injustices that happen in institutions. And then he decided to study film. And since then, he's not looked back. And he's made some wonderful, wonderful documentary films about society. I tell my students that you are social scientists. You're studying society, but what you're doing, you're using film as a tool to study society. And I think that is correct in many ways. So I'm really hoping that one day, I think I've spoken with Dr. Asa'ah, I will collaborate with CamDoc, because it's not the first time. I think it's with him I spoke, that it would be nice to find out about what people really do and how they want to take that information out there. The pandemic happened, we all suffered. For the first time in my life in the UK, I've been in the UK about 40 years. Yes, next year will be 40 years. I was privileged to work with Black and Asian women. And we had this grant to look at how the pandemic impacted on ethnic minority communities, that is Black people and Asian people. I was working with science, I was working with lawyers, I was working with medical people, social science, social work. And my job as part of this consortium, it was called Co-Power, the Consortium on Practices of Wellbeing and Resilience, looking at how the ethnic minority communities, their well-being and their resilience during this period, the real challenges that they faced. And my job as a creative person from the arts and humanities background was to create documentary films that will actualize and visualize some of these stories. So I made, like, I'm still working on the films. I've already produced like 4 or 5 documentary films about young people, about carers. And this is that kind of interdisciplinary situation that you have with most subjects now. So film fits in there. The challenges, emotional and ethical responsibilities. Working with real people, you are responsible for how they are. There are many, many ethical things. I can give you an example. When we made Sisters-in-Law, we were very, very concerned about the fact that there's a young girl here who's been brutally raped by the neighbor, and they're coming to court. What are we going to do about this? we showed her face. But I think in the UK, you cannot do that. And was he good? Was he bad? That's what I don't know. But that's one of the biggest challenges that I have faced in terms of trying to make a film that you can get audiences to get close to, talking about domestic violence, talking about sexual abuse in a way that will engage an audience beyond the self. It's heavily emotional. During the pandemic, a lot of Black men in particular faced the police. It was horrible. And I am still editing that documentary, which I am finding that very, very difficult. The kind of emotional thing, I have to do a bit of counseling. When we were interviewing the guy, him talking about what he went through. Even though these challenges are there, it is so important for these stories to be told, because in the end, there is healing. And it is that healing that you want to share with audiences so that you know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. But also there are challenges that have to do with the institutional kind of and systemic resistance. And how have I dealt with that? That is a very long story. I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in the fact that in the educational system, in the academic world, there should be multiple voices that are bringing stories, that are bringing knowledge. The knowledge system cannot be one. So I am resisting. I resist a lot in terms of telling the stories, because real stories carry they carry real stakes for people. And me being in the position of the diaspora, I am determined to make sure that even if it's one documentary film I make, to share knowledge and ideas about Africa so that people can have a kind of different frame of referencing Africa and African lives. That's what I strongly believe in. For me, I think film and education, they are really key. As I say, it's a way of seeing, a way of feeling, a way of knowing. And education should empower, not conform. Film education actually should really enable people to empower themselves, to empower society. I don't conform to the things that are this. I think a lot of the times when Sisters-in-Law was shown, somebody asked me, why did you go to Kumba to show? Why didn't you go to the Court of Appeal? Why didn't you go to the Supreme Court to show the big cases there? That is another film, and that is another agenda for another filmmaker, because as our first panelist talked about, she has specialized in a particular area. There are many, many kinds of doctors, and there are many, many kinds of filmmakers. There are many, many kinds of accountants and kind of architects. So we cannot do everything. You find your corner, you find a way that you want to do. I don't want to conform. If there is an African filmmaker who chooses to make films the way that the West sees Africa, with kind of ethnological lens, with a kind of very colonial lens, that is fine. That is their agenda. But I am asking, whose story is it and whose voice, and why now? Why now? Because Africa's present is changing, and we need to bring that in the visual space. Why also? I grew up with parents who didn't read and write, and my pictures in the neighborhood will tell a different story, will allow them, is being inclusive. That's what I strongly believe. Apart from being inclusive, I think it's a powerful way to take messages to the world. And also kind of cultural bridging. There's a way that people can understand Africa, they can understand Guatemala through film. Whether you can read or write, it doesn't matter. Film has many layers of language. That's what I like to maybe tell or share with many people. So what are the rewards? When I made a documentary film in Zanzibar, I've been to Zanzibar 15 times. It's a wonderful place for research. And one of the biggest reward that I've had is how the documentary film I made about women soccer players is called Zanzibar Soccer Queens. I went back 4 or 5 years later, I made Zanzibar Soccer Dreams. How that film changed policy in the country, how it transformed the lives of the women and how they are seen in their society, changing minds and influencing the future. One of the rewards is also recognition of marginalized knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge. I believe in the whole process of bottom up, not top bottom. There's a lot of knowledge here that must not be ignored, because this knowledge that is at the bottom can tell us a lot about how we are and how we can prepare for the future. But also is the joy of collaboration and creating. But it also is the thing about personal growth. Through the documentary films that I've made in Cameroon, about a female chief, about bronze making, about women artists, I have discovered my country in a way that I would never have done that before. And I feel more better for that. So I just wanted to say that even if you are thinking about that you want to be a medical person, I think as you're going into it, as our first panelist has said, go into it, but know that there are other ways that you can even help your parents, your patients, because there are times when small videos, I'm sure maybe Dr. Djoumessi does that, or maybe talks about that. She ended with a photograph. That photograph is very, very powerful. She started with a photograph of what she uses. That's really, really powerful. Think about how your work, your idea, how your career is not a singular thing, how where you want to go is not singular. Collaboration is key, and it's very, very rewarding when you collaborate with other subject areas. Explore opportunities, and youth media is amazing. Nowadays, if you look really keenly at some of the key main channels, you will see what they call citizens journalism, citizens reporting their stuff. Mobile phones are out there. We are open to the world. Social media is key. They use it, I would say, tell stories that matter to you and your people and your community. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. I don't know that I ran over. Time is not a great point.
Yes. Yes.
Let's stay in conversation. I will play some of my contacts if that is okay. Am I allowed to do that?
Yes, you are. We will put that at the end of the program. We have, like I said, also on our website, we're going to have all the various communication links for various people.
So I shouldn't place anything now, right?
When we come to the second part of the program,
yes,
when you say that will be better. Can I just say that this is a fantastic talk? Because we are pushed for time, I'm sure you would like to, when we come to Q&A, you spoke a lot about advocacy. Maybe I hope I'm using the right expression here. At some point, we will need you to perhaps explain where do we draw the line between advocacy and political activism, because as we know, one of our young lady here right here in the UK, Mimi Mefo, effectively used to do a lot of documentary and ended up in trouble. I'm saying this because this is a program that is advising people about career lines. Somebody might say, those journalists, they always get locked up. I don't want to go into that sort of sector. So it will help us when you come to Q&A to think about how you can actually explain. We watch Al Jazeera, you hear journalists have been locked up for years, some actually. So this the issue about the fine line between advocacy and, of course, your colleagues there on the Q&A, some are already talking about the importance of edutainment and all that. Will come to that bit. So it seems like we're going to have an exciting Q&A session. Let me just thank you again, Prof. Ayisi, but stay with us. We're going to move on to the last speaker, but again, another very exciting area. When we started this YPCN scheme 20 years ago, it was first done, we were focusing mainly on the stock exchange side of things. And it was but then that was a face-to-face meeting. Nowadays, we've progressed to modern technology using Zoom. And we couldn't have a much better speaker, anyone better than Dr. Manti Mendi, that I've known for close to 10 years now. Dr. Manti Mendi is an engineer who also, what do we call again, career renaissance. He moved into the finance sector after leaving Oxford and Brunel University to move into the finance sector. He works on the stock exchange, and he's going to tell us something about financial risk management. Dr. Manti Mendi, you've got the microphone.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Nkohkwo. And also, thank you very much, Dr. Djoumessi, Professor Ayisi. I actually have forgotten almost what I'm going to say, because I've been really, really touched by your presentation and the advice what you do. I am in a completely different sector that is often vilified and so on and so forth. So just want to thank you very much for the very insightful talk that you've just provided. Okay, to get started, my name is Manti Mendi. Thank you very much, Dr. Nkohkwo, for being so generous in your introduction. Very few people call me doctor. In fact, when I get called doctor, I turn around and surprised that it's actually me. Right. Okay, I work for Citi, and Citi is a major US bank. While I remember, because I've mentioned my employer, because of my role, I'm obliged to tell you that all the views that I expressed during this session are mine alone, and not that of my employers or indeed any of my previous employers. So with that out of the way, let me start by outlining what I do. So I work in risk management. In simple terms, Citi, like any other bank, is in the process of extending credit to our clients. So this is either through products or loans, and clients include corporates, insurance companies, pension funds, central banks, and so on and so forth. So Citi needs to manage that risk. In other words, they need to be comfortable that the clients can pay us back. That's, in a nutshell, that's really what bankers do, right? They really want to make sure that you can pay them what they've lent to you. Now, in a nutshell, what I've just described is counterparty credit risk. I am the head of counterparty credit risk within EMEA and in Citi. So counterparty credit risk is a section within, it's a department, if you like, within risk. And though I will focus on risk management, banking has a spectrum of other activities, right? So you've got front office, you've got quants, you've got functions, you've got other functions that include legal personnel, you've got compliance, and so on and so forth. So this is just one side of the story. And unfortunately, because of time, even though I'm aware of other sections, I would like to concentrate on my journey so that I can give proper advice to those who are thinking of getting into the into this field. So in Citi, what does my role involve? So I told you before, banking is the business of making sure that what you've lent to clients are able to pay you back. So on a day-to-day basis, I track risk, right? The risk that we run with clients to make sure that we are not running an outsized position so much so that they are unable to pay us. So let's take, for example, during crises, the markets behave in situations where the clients end up owing us a lot of money. My immediate aim is to make sure that they are able to pay. If payment is coming due, make sure that we have the right people looking at that, making sure that they are comfortable with that risk, not to take more risk, or if they are taking more risk, be comfortable with taking more risk. It also involves natural disasters. I know it sounds a bit morbid when you have natural disasters. But my role is to make sure that for instance, if our clients are insurance companies, we have natural disasters, are they able to pay us back? So looking at all those things, forecasting financial positions and liquidity positions of or situations of our clients is some of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. And then another side of what I do involves interactions with financial regulators. So banking these days is heavily regulated. So the regulator wants to make sure that we have the right models, and these models are well governed, and and they are well, so in terms of back testing, they are actually doing what they are supposed to do. So I tend to be the one within EMEA to discuss this with regulators, tell them how we are doing, any new models. Around EMEA typically requires my sign off. And then as with banking, if you've read the papers, you know that there's a lot of transformation projects. So regulators always find things that are wrong with banks. And sometimes banks self-identify issues, and even internal audits sometimes within banks find out things that do not work. So I tend to do a lot of these, and I tend to do a lot of this remedial work. And this remediation effort is usually very high profile because getting that wrong is not very good, both for your compensation and also for the brand of the bank. So part of my role involves project management, leadership, able to communicate communicate within various sets of and different levels of stakeholders, not necessarily stakeholders that are quantitatively minded like myself, but they could be IT folks, they could be lawyers, they could be just, if you like, credit officers. So another part of my role, I mentioned a little bit, is around governance of models, model sponsorship, stress testing, so preparing for the worst, and then model oversight. And then obviously, with banking, you always need to make sure that you nurse the portfolio. That is the portfolio. Is the portfolio within risk appetite? Is it within strategy? Is it are the risks that we are taking what we expect, and so on and so forth? So this kind of completes in a very, very high level, without confusing anybody, I hope, what I do day to day in my current role. Well, I have been in the financial industry for over 2 decades. And perhaps Dr. Nkohkwo actually gave a good overview of my education, but I'll just highlight 2 things there. So starting with say university. So I did university here in England, and I did a master's in engineering science, specializing in robotics and computer vision. And I didn't know it at the time, but as I reflect, these gave me the mathematical, if you like, know-how, the computational skills that I then exploited throughout my career. And then as time flicked a little bit, I did a PhD in mathematical and computational finance. And this then means that naturally my role into the industry was pretty much fixed. Having said that, getting my first role wasn't an easy one. And I'd just like to spend a little bit of time here especially for folks who are thinking of pursuing a career in quantitative finance, risk management, either in the front office or within risk itself. It's, for me, I found that very difficult. I did a number of interviews, in fact, several interviews, and I just couldn't make it. And as I reflect, it's not because I wasn't good enough. It's just because I did not prepare in the way that was required. So finance is very congested. You have millions, and well, perhaps not millions, hundreds of thousands of people applying for the same job. And A, your CV has to hit the mark. B, you have to within a few minutes, demonstrate that you are the real person for the job. I'm talking about entrance to entry level jobs. Now, it gets a little bit better, I would have thought, when you go into, I don't know, say it's the next job, so after the first one, because then it could be through in my case, referrals. I tend to have a lot of referrals, and in order to get referrals, you need to be well connected. So I wouldn't underestimate the, and in fact, I can't overestimate advising people to develop relationships with people, like-minded people, try to learn about the industry, attend events such as talks and so on, so that when you speak to somebody, it's not just your CV that they look at. They actually look and make sure that you really do that job. When I interview myself, when I interview people, those are the things also that I look at. Okay, I think that concludes kind of my education. Just looking at my notes, and in the interest of time, I just want to just maybe perhaps focus a little bit on my work in Barclays. So this is my first role in banking. So the role that I had in Barclays, it's getting more than 2 decades ago, was a quantitative analyst job. So in this job, I did home finance, I did credit cards, I did securitization, portfolio management, and things like that. Now, I'm naming all of that, but what that did was it gave me the foundation for what I did next. So it enabled me to look at the environment, and by the way, I didn't say this. It's very, very important to plan your career in banking. So not necessarily overplan or how do I put it? Not necessarily to know that, okay, in 2 years I'm going to be doing this, in 3 years I'm going to be doing this, but kind of have a roadmap as to what you want to do. This way, sometimes, if you're lucky, you have several opportunities, and because you've thought about what you want to do, you can kind of pick and choose between opportunities that come to you. And then one of the next pivotal moments of my career was joining consultancy. So joining one of the big four, PwC, where in PwC, I was head of model development and the model risk proposition. So that gave me the opportunity of meeting up with clients, discussing with clients discussing with clients what models they wanted, even advising clients on meetings with the regulators. You can see that all of these things kind of built up. They kind of built up, and now it's full circle. I've gone back into finance, and I'm still working, believe it or not, with the same set of people that I've worked before. So the journey in finance could include working in pension funds, working in banking, and then eventually going to consulting like I did, or becoming a regulator. So I think that I'll probably end there. But before I do, let me just recount a few areas that I'd like to provide to people who are either looking to get into banking, people who are thinking of transitioning even within banking, or even experienced professionals who are at the point where they want to make, I don't know, they want to further their career, if you want. I would say that strong technical foundation is a must. I think that Professor Ayisi did say that. So even at the moment, I still have some, sorry, excuse me. So even at the moment, I still have people who are pursuing PhD while working, because technical expertise is kind of like your brand. That is what makes, in banking, that's one of the things that make people respect you. It doesn't really, sometimes it doesn't really matter how nice you are, how interpersonal you are. At the end of the day, you really need to be able to talk and people respect, and making sure that you have that technical foundation is very, very important. Of course, developing communication skills and leadership skills as you go up is very, very important. I found that very, very interesting that throughout my career, it's helped me to be able to naturally bridge that gap between sometimes regulators who may not understand as much of models, and also top leadership may not understand as understand the models, or quite frankly, are not interested in understanding the models, but more the conclusions. But they need to understand well enough what the issues, where the issues lie. Throughout my career, things have changed a lot. So being able to adapt to changes, we probably will not have time to discuss the recent changes, ChatGPT and so on and so forth, but one needs to be ready to adapt. And then, as you've seen with my career, it's kind of diversified. I've worked in finance, I've worked in banking, I've worked in consulting, I've actually done contracting before, and then I'm back in finance. So I've got other colleagues who've done hedge funds and so on and so forth. So having a diversified experience actually helps you, and the skills that you nurture are very important when you go to more senior levels. And then very, very lastly, building relationships. I think this goes with all areas. So networking and collaborating are very, very indispensable. These are things that actually open the doors to a lot of people, including myself. Okay, so I think I probably have gone well beyond my allocated time, so I'll end there and pass it back to you, Dr. Nkohkwo.
Thank you, Dr. Mendi. I think, again, like the other two speakers, the passion comes across. And not just the passion, but I hope the message is also coming across to those who are interested in the three career lines that we've actually featured this evening. Dr. Djoumessi essentially addressed, from a work-life balance, how you can actually operate as a GP doctor, and the path leading to that. And of course, she made mention of the fact that hopefully at this, not hopefully, at the subsequent webinar, we will actually address the early stages in the medical career. And there's a whole range of medical specialties that we're going to do: public health, pathology, which I am one, Dr. Mbene is another one. Then there is a whole range of, there is a surgery, which we'll come to. But again, this is not just about doctors. We've seen today. I can see the questions, a lot of questions firing for Professor Ayisi. Professor Ayisi actually focused on how you can use documentary film to make a point and actually change policy, as in the case of Tanzania, which she mentioned, somewhere in East Africa. And we'll come to that, but I think Dr. Ayisi is going to give us some link, which we'll put on. She said she's going to give us some link how people can reach her. Dr. Mendi actually focused on essentially how the importance of mentorship. In fact, it came across clearly that we can see one of the things we're hoping to achieve in this program is that people should end up with having people can mentor them. And I'm not speaking for him, but I hope it came across that here is someone who he's seen the value of it and is willing also to help other people, like all the other speakers are saying. So we're going to move into the Q&A section. And before we go there, can I just point out to people that before we end this thing, this session, people can, there is also a feedback questionnaire which people might want to complete to enable us see what the value of this, and not only doing those feedback, and not only giving us the value of this session, but also propose other career areas that you might like to see. So they focus on this, in as much as the speakers were so passionate. Our theme, salient theme here was how listening to them, you could feel the need to follow that career line. And if you wanted to follow that career line, what you needed to be aware of, what you had to be doing to go into those last four. That's essentially the focus of this session. Now we're going to go into a Q&A. At this point, I'm going to invite my co-moderator who has been looking at the comments and the Q&A questions section that have been coming through. Dr. Mbene is my co-moderator. She's actually a chemical pathologist and medical examiner. In as much as I just said that she's a CamDoc treasurer, that's the association side, but her day-to-day job is a medical examiner, and she's also a chemical pathologist. Yet again, a whole range of specialties that we'll deal in the future. But at this point, I want to ask Dr. Mbene, bring Dr. Mbene in to come in and address, flag some of the questions that and comments that people have been making in the back screen. And I just want to remind them, Professor Ayisi, that we would like you to also address this fine line between advocacy and politics, because people, like I said about the young Mimi Mifo, we all knew what happened to her. She went out during documentary and ended up being locked up. The whole world had to protest to get her out of the jail in Cameroon. We know what happened in Al Jazeera. We know all that. But I don't want to encroach too far into Dr. Mbene's session. Dr. Anna Mbene, my co-moderator, you've got the microphone.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Asa'ah Nkohkwo. The panelists have been brilliant. Thank you very much, Dr. Sandrine Djoumessi, Professor Florence, Dr. Manti Mendi. And we have a few questions on the Q&A. Dr. Sandrine has already answered some questions remotely, but I think it might be worthwhile answering them live also, so they can have a discussion with those who have put the questions. So the first one is from I. Bioni. He says, how can someone studying in Cameroon at secondary school level with the ambition to get into your line of work prepare for success? Can someone who completed our biomedical general training in Cameroon here be accepted to study in the UK?
Yes, I think there are two questions in that question. I think if you do A-level in Cameroon, if you have done the baccalaureate, because in Cameroon you can do baccalaureate or you can do A-level properly, right? So if you've done the baccalaureate, it's a little bit more complex because in the UK, generally people do the A-level and they've done 3 subjects, and one of the most important subjects for the UK to enter medicine is chemistry. You cannot study without having an A-level in chemistry. So the other important subject is biology, but you can study some university rarely, but you can study without biology. But chemistry is the key. Now, when you've done the baccalaureate, if you study in the French system, if you're fluent in English, then that's fine. You will probably need kind of a year because in the UK, you apply for medical school in year 13 when you haven't done your A-level. The last day of the application is, I think, mid-October from year 13. So you can imagine that you've got to have done the UCAT exam, which is a kind of a series of tests. It's a computerized exam that you have to have done by the 1st or 2nd week of September. So you imagine that if you are in Cameroon in premiere for the Francophone system, you will have to have prepared for the UCAT, sat somewhere in one of the centers in Cameroon, done the UCAT, and done your application. I'm not sure that the Francophone system do predicted grade, because you will need your predicted grades. So basically, for someone who's done the Francophone system, it's very difficult. They may have to complete the A-level, which is baccalaureate first, then prepare for the UCAT, which is that computerized exam, and then do the application for October, then that will be for the following year. So basically, they will lose a year. But if the child is studying in an English system, there are British system, there are schools providing typical A-level, like in the UK, and they know well in advance, they can do exactly what the pupils here will do in the UK system, which will be to apply, to do the UCAT, as I said, apply by October, request to have predicted grade. Now, this is the minimum. What is very important when you're applying for medicine is to make sure that you've done a lot of extracurricular activity related to that, which show that you are interested, you do care. You know, it's not always going to shadow a doctor. It can be working with elderly. It can be, you know, working in the community. You need to prove there are a lot of things that come into that. I think we will, as we said, we'll do another webinar. I've got my little idea, you know, other people who can definitely, it's a whole huge topic that we need to address. Now, if you are a postgraduate, it's different. Again, there are universities that take postgraduate. Their entry is separate from graduate directly with the A-level. It will depend. Some university insist that you have had your degree with a certain with distinction or with first or two first, you know, I don't know exactly, but it will be important to go on in specific medical school and look at the requirement. But again, we can address that in other webinars, and we'll make sure that it is looked at.
Very interesting and very exhaustive, Dr. Djoumessi. I would have thought biology was the major requirement. How strange.
The biology, it will be, I will advise everyone to do biology, but you could get away without, but you could not get away if you haven't done chemistry. You cannot, there's no medical school in the UK taking that. So I will emphasize making sure the children, if a child is interested, to make sure they've done chemistry.
Good. Let's move on to the next question. It says, Dr. Djoumessi, can a qualified doctor abroad as a GP get a job directly as a GP in the UK? What are the requirements? I know the terminologies of general practice is very different from country to country, but I believe maybe this person is asking about somebody who is trained with a specialty. I know you can elaborate on that further.
Yes, thank you very much. I knew this question will come because there's a little bit of confusion. We've had a lot of discussion in our CamDoc chat about that as well. In Cameroon, when you graduate as a doctor, you call a GP. You call a general practitioner. In the UK, it's not the case. In the UK, when you graduate, you've got to do that 2-year foundation, complete that 2-year foundation program, apply for the GP training, which is a specialty training, and do the 2 years as a GP registrar. So if you are a doctor who completed medical school in Cameroon and you've worked 2 to 3, 4 years, you think that you have all the experience that a GP has in the UK, fair enough, you will need to provide your foundation year 2 competency evidence, and then apply for the training in the UK, enter the GP training. Once you've completed your MRCP exams and the Royal College of GP portfolio, then you will obtain your CCT and you can register as a GP. Otherwise, no. So the term in the UK, it's confused some people in Cameroon, because in Cameroon, everybody who has finished medical school is a general practitioner. That's not the case in the UK.
Okay, that's good to know. But I believe other European countries have the same route of formation like the UK. So maybe somebody abroad in Europe can they work directly as a GP?
They have done the GP training.
Yeah.
Yes. In France, they do a 3-year training. In the United States, they also do a 3-year training to become a GP. So these are the two countries that those countries also do a specialty training to become GPs. I don't think in Europe there's any country you finish medical school and without training and you're a GP.
No, it doesn't exist, because I trained in Italy, and they also have the GP specialist training, which is 3 years.
Exactly. We do have to understand that GPs needs to have a very good understanding of a lot of various specialties. It is sometimes, I think, as I mentioned, the bad press. It's not just the bad press. I wish some of my consultant specialist colleague could come to shadow us and see what we do. It is important to understand. It is true, as Professor Ayisi said, you cannot do everything, right? But you need to have a solid understanding, a solid foundation to be able to safely practice in primary care, to do an excellent job and refer appropriately. And, we follow this patient. Otherwise, the gates will be open. And I can tell you, secondary care will not be able to cope. Yes, there is still a way to go. There is a good way to go, but I can sit here and say that I am passionate about what I do. I think the fact that I am able to see someone, we have specific consultation techniques to be able to do certain things in 10 minutes. It doesn't always work. It will work with a sore throat. It will work with a chest infection, but it doesn't work when a patient is coming breathless, the legs are swollen, they're 90 years old, and they are confused. It's definitely a 20, 30-minute consultation. So, and that we are also dealing with it. Some colleagues get stressed, obviously, and overwhelmed, and might admit the patient directly in A&E without doing certain things, which will frustrate our colleagues in secondary care. Some colleagues will get, stressed and do certain referrals. Yes, that exists, it's there, but it's because of the huge volume, the complexity and the specialty are changing. I can see a child next minute. I am seeing a patient who has severe depression, right? And I'm required to be able to adapt and safely assess that patient and have an appropriate management plan. So, and that is also the beauty, and that's where the technicality, as Dr. Mendi said, I think it's easy. I always said that. I said that a lot to my younger GP colleagues. It's easy to be a rubbish GP because you can glance over stuff very quickly. But it's difficult to be a good GP because you need to make sure you're on top of your game. You know what you're doing. You look into certain condition a bit deeper, and like Dr. Mendi said earlier on, what is important is the technicality, is your skills. It's important to be able to reflect, to be able to continue to do these personal developments. It's important to also accept, oh my God, I haven't seen much people with eye issues recently. I need to refresh my knowledge. I need to pick up the phone and call one of my colleagues who has a little bit of a special interest on that, and so on. So, but it is a challenging job. But it's a very rewarding job. So I will have to say I'm very proud of what I do there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Djoumessi. I think you're off the hot seat for now. We're going to move on to Professor Ayisi. So there's a question. It's asking, how lucrative is the career as a filmmaker? Can you give us an estimate of salaries?
Yeah, I was just laughing at that. Okay, salaries for creatives in the industry or in the university sector, because I'm sitting here between two positions. I am in the university, I'm teaching, I do research, and my research is documentary films. My documentary films are not commercial. They have value in terms of research, in terms of bringing new knowledge. Not that the people who do independent films who paid a lot of money don't. There are many, many impactful films, fiction films or documentary films, yeah? I cannot give you that salary because a lot of the people in the film industry, in the creative industry, especially film and television, some of them are freelance. So for example, if you take the BBC, I cannot tell you what people are earning in the BBC. It's wide-ranging broadcasters. You know, as we've all established here, every single career path or subject area has many, many, many different careers that you can do. So I'm not a journalist. I tell people sometimes when I take my camera, I'm in Cameroon or Zanzibar, I'm not a journalist. I go deep. I'm a documentary filmmaker. So that question, I cannot answer it. I'm paid as a university lecturer or university professor. People who work in the industry, the people I work with who are creatives, who are freelancers, who are editors and sound people, sometimes they charge 300 pounds a day. Remember, they don't work every day of the week. Sometimes they can work only 3 months in a whole year. So it's so different. So I think now that we have the internet, which is a wonderful resource for everybody to access, and I think wherever you are in the world who's asked the question, your phone is a wonderful weapon. Just go and type and find out if you want to work, whether in the private sector or as an independent filmmaker. If you want to be an editor, you'll see estimates of what independent editors earn, or freelance editors, what they earn, or freelance directors or freelance producers. But again, it comes with a lot of experience. So that is a complex question I cannot answer. But also, if you want to look at salaries of, if you were meaning my job as a university lecturer, when I started many years ago, I've been teaching for 29 years, you know. When I started many years ago, I started with 15,000 pounds, you know, a year. Then, you know, now it's not like that because the living standards have changed. You know, the price of living, everything has gone up. So salaries have really gone up. But that's also information you can find out online in terms of what is the starting salary for university lecturer. Remember, you start as a lecturer, then you go as a senior lecturer. In some universities, you can go as a reader, but I think readers are not there anymore. Maybe you go as associate professor, and then you go as a professor if you're doing research. Principal, lecturer, or you can be in the admin sector if you're interested in administrative things. So I'm sorry, I can't give you a direct answer, but use the internet as your resource to find out how much people are charging, because I'm not sure exactly what particular salary they were asking for. Can you just check your notes again, Anna? What exactly?
It just says, as I've just said, can you give us an estimate of salaries?
Okay, right. Okay, yeah.
Just as
right.
how lucrative is a career as a filmmaker. So
okay, all right, as a filmmaker, it's lucrative if you're doing films that are selling a lot. My documentaries don't sell that way. I'm not commissioned. My first documentary film was commissioned, and we did that as independent, but I was in the university sector. So as directors, which was like, we made Sisters-in-Law 20 years ago, 2004, 2005, maybe 21 years ago, or we were paid like £1,000 a week, you know, £1,500 a week, because it was funded, it was commissioned by Channel 4. That was a lot of money in that time. Yes, now it's more. So that is a question that that person can email me when I put my message. Can email me and I can guide them through how to look at it, because film looks as if it's all glamorous and everything, but to get there in terms of, if you want to be a director, what kind of director do you want to be? Okay, you want to work for the BBC, you want to read news. So I am not, as if I can connect it to Dr. Asa'ah's question, where you said journalist. I don't think in my job anybody will ever arrest me, because I am not interested in doing the sensational, and I'm not a journalist. I focus on people. I go to Zanzibar, I go to Cameroon. I hear that a woman is going to be made a chief in a village. And I'm thinking, my God, a chief? I've never heard a woman being a traditional ruler. I go there. I stay there for 3 weeks. I filmed all the preparation. She's enthroned. I want to show that times are changing. There's transformation.
Yeah.
And men in Cameroon are saying that les femmes font toujours. I want to try and speak French, but I can't because the people I was interviewing with francophones, they're saying that the marché fundi in Yaoundé cannot function without women. Women are the people who hold a society. Now, I would like to hear men saying that. So this woman is enthroned as a chief. I'm curious. I want to know. I want to show the world. I want to share with the world that the lived experiences of Africans has to be in the present, and African societies are changing. They're opening up, and women are doing so much. The lives of women is not what people thought 50 years ago, 40 years ago. So nobody's going to arrest me for that. I do politics, but my politics is with the people, the politics of representation. I'm not interested in sensational things. 3 weeks ago, somebody contacted me from America and said, the war in Russia is using African women to work in the factories where the drones are made. I like you because you've made films about women for us to make this documentary, want to expose this exploitation. They lie to them that it's almost like human trafficking. He told me they lie to them that they will come to Russia to study, then work, they'll have good jobs to change their lives. They bring these women to Russia, but they go into the factories and the conditions are deplorable. The first thing I thought to myself is that, you know something, I don't want to be killed by polonium. What do you call that poison? Polonium? What do you call it? I don't want to be killed. Number one, I'm not interested. There are filmmakers who will do that. Western filmmakers can do that because they always want to show a particular image of African people who are desperate for money and who want to. That story is valid, but that's not what I do. I don't do the sensational. I don't.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
And I'm not a journalist. So I think I may have tried to answer 2 questions.
No, you did very well. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
There is another question asking about where we can watch Sisters-in-Law. For those who haven't watched it, is there a link?
Yes.
And somebody has asked if that what was your motivation? What how did you get the inspiration for your documentary, especially before coming to the UK?
Okay, thank you for that. Nice question. Yes, I'll put some links for a Vimeo link, and you can find Sisters-in-Law there because it's a very old film now. You can find links on Vimeo and YouTube. And what I will do is I'll also give you links for my creative practice research website. You can see a lot of the things that I've done. You can see trailers there, so I'll send that. Why did I get the inspiration? I've always wanted to tell stories because I came from the English background where I read a lot of literature, English literature, American literature, African literature, Commonwealth literature, and I did drama and theater. So the need to tell stories, growing up with my grandma and my aunties and everything, I want to talk. I want to share. I want to talk. So that's the inspiration. Then I had a scholarship. I'm not one of those lucky people. My parents were not wealthy to send me to the UK. I had a scholarship in 1986 to come and study television and come back to Cameroon and work. But anyway, you know what happens. They never call you back. Or when you go, there's nothing there for you. So I decided that what it really, really inspired me and that kicked me, that made me angry, is the fact that the way that Africa was represented in Western media, on television, in many films, is like the poverty Africa, the disease Africa, the corruption Africa. The thing is the place, if it's positive, it's only the exotic Africa with wild animals and then landscapes and everything. But there's poverty and there's war, there's disease, there's AIDS and everything. That's what I saw. But whoever's asked that question must know that Africa is much more than that. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to show the other Africa that gives us back our dignity, that allows us, women in particular, to reclaim what we know. So I was inspired by filmmakers from Senegal, Ousmane Sembène, filmmakers from Mali, Souleymane Cissé, who recently died this year, who were saying that Ousmane Sembène talked about the fact that when others ignore us and they show us in many negative ways, should we ignore ourselves? No, it's up to us to shine the light on who we are. And then there's a critic, he too has passed away, UCLA from Ethiopia. He talked about the fact that women are the bearers of tradition and culture. They're the custodians. They are the unsung who make the song. They make the song, but yet nobody knows about them. When I saw that, I thought, I'm going to make a song about women. I'm going to make sure I focus my work on women. So what inspires me is sometimes what makes me angry or what makes me passionate. I wanted to share the story of the women in Zanzibar who play soccer despite the challenges. And because of that film, they were invited to Germany when the film was screened in many festivals around the world. They were invited to Germany for 3.5 weeks, 22 players. And that also changed the policy in the country to allow young girls to play soccer in schools. So that's what inspires me, seeing change. And I am desperate to tell the stories about African lives. That's what I do. And for example, now we have a lot of professionals in the UK who are contributing a lot to the economy, to the society, to everything. But we don't really know them except we meet together. One day, maybe it will be that kind of film before I retire. Anyway, so that's what inspires me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Ayisi. Very inspiring indeed. So I think you're also off the hot seat for now.
Thank you.
We're going to move to Dr. Manti Mendi. There is a question in the Q&A that says, how will AI affect the finance sector? Will it become obsolete as AI can analyze anything now?
Oh, that's a good question. The answer is probably no. AI, I'm putting my hand up now. I exploit AI a lot. So my job requires me to be on top of information. Each time I get up, by the time I get to the office, I ought to know precisely how the markets are, have a narrative around that. So AI is actually helping me, and I know that a lot of colleagues, it's helping them just by being able to summarize a financial page and make connections with counterparties within my bank and so on and so forth. That's amazing. So AI has really, I mean, it's really something that is to be embraced. Now, having said that, in terms of jobs, there are several jobs that people don't actually want to do. So for instance, we have policies. It's really cumbersome to for example, follow a process and then check, is this process in line with policy? So you got like, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of policies. So before AI, nobody actually wanted to do that. Even now, nobody wanted to do that. So, but now with AI, so certain jobs might have gone. For example, entry-level jobs who would be charged with doing that. But it's created new jobs. Other people, other skill sets can then exploit this. Now there is a limit to AI, at least for now. A lot of banks, including mine, though they exploit AI, would not trust AI with certain decisions. They would not trust AI. Certainly, calculating obligations for the bank and that kind of stuff. So I think that at least for the time being, AI is actually going to make life easy for us. Some jobs might go, but it will create new ones. But it's still evolving.
Good. That's interesting. And the last question for you is, what's the best website to find events in finance?
So good question. So so there are several websites. To start off with LinkedIn, you can follow people that you can follow. I mean, there are lots of like company websites and so on and so forth, i.e. like links to various individuals within LinkedIn. Also, there are actually a lot of, I would say, so much more developed websites. For example, like CCP, central counterparties. I'm just taking one example. For example, these are people who want their products to be discovered, right? So and these are niche. So and there are many others like this. So it's a matter of going to these websites. Consultancy firms, what they do is that they want to make sure that they can sell, and they know that they want to make sure that people know what they are offering. So just having a look at their websites would probably help you, understand, certain events. And actually, that is, so those are some of them. I would say that if you are if you like reading a lot and you happen to have subscriptions to articles, well, to magazines like Risk Magazine, The Economist, and so on and so forth. So those naturally just tell you events that are available. Having said that, these events, you need to pick and choose. I wasn't suggesting that attend all events, but you just need to pick and choose the ones that are relevant for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I would just like to say in the chat, Professor Ayisi has put her email, her contact details for those who are interested. Also, don't forget to fill in the survey before logging out, please. I will hand over the floor to Dr. Asa'ah Nkohkwo.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mbene. Fantastic, and it's very passionate Q&A session. Just the speakers continue with their passion, and our audience very engaging. I can see a whole range. I can see, I know it probably will not like me to say this. We actually have the president of the court, the High Court in Buea, actually logged on. There are all sorts of people. Actually, he did say so. He says he's actually logging from Cameroon. We're very impressed, and hopefully people are finding it very informative. Before Dr. Manti goes away, I know we've had this discussion informally, but before we close this session, people might want to know, because we're talking about financial, you say that your whole talk based on whether somebody should be given a loan or not, the way, the pros and the cons. And I've spoken this informally, but people might like to know, given that the United States at the moment has the highest amazing telephone number of even the debt in America, US, is just frightening. Yet they're still one of the highest in terms of credit worthiness, given the fact that already is such a huge. How do you finance risk managers actually play that?
Sorry, so is the question, how do I?
Why would you give a loan to America, given the fact that they have your debt level in America is, I don't think it's astronomical.
Yeah. So there are a number of angles to look at that. And by the way, I'm not allowed to trade because of the nature of my work. I'm privy to information that creates conflict of interest. So, but in general, the simple thing about trading is you're buying low, you're trading. So you're buying low, right? And then you are selling when it's high, so you can have more return. Like any other asset, with Trump and his business, the bonds, American sovereign bonds, so the U.S. Treasury bonds are volatile, so it gives you that opportunity to trade and make money. Now, in terms of I would say their credit standing, right? So they were downgraded by Moody's not long ago, but other rating agencies had downgraded them. That actually hasn't really dampened the desire for U.S. Treasuries. So and actually maybe it's just the way the system is designed, right? So from the point of view of banks, sometimes we have to hold liquid assets, and these are the best assets, right? So sometimes we have no choice. We really have to buy those assets. So I would say that's a tricky question. Maybe it's more big players like China, the government of China, the Central Bank of China, who have lots and lots of U.S. treasuries. And when they offload these treasuries, they in huge amounts, they obviously they are not interested in it as it sounds now. So when they offload it, it creates instability. So central governments elsewhere probably have very little choice unless they want to diversify. Folks like yourself and myself, probably could buy, but and let me just be very clear that it's volatile. You buy when it's low generally, and you sell when it's high, so that you get more money. Sometimes there are tax implications in it as well, but it's I think it's a very short it's a very short time to go into any level of detail. And by the way, that wasn't a financial advice.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mendi. We're just getting towards the end, and I would just want to reassure everyone that all this program is recorded, and it will be available once the CamDoc executive have gone through the necessary policy scrutiny. They will decide, and then it will be logged on our website, which is CamDocUK.org. And also, if you would like to reach any of the speakers today, just contact CamDoc and we will create a link between you and the speakers. Obviously, we have a policy position which we'll have to look into before we link up people. There are all sort of things. Nowadays, you talk about safeguarding and all what, which is the CamDoc actually operates within the frame of UK and international law. So send us a request if you like to contact any of the link speakers. Also, send us any topics that you would like to be covered in future sessions. Please let us know, because we are preparing a whole series of panel ideas for the next 6 months. Each session is just 3 panelists, and we'll try and make sure that we cover as wide as you saw today. We have a finance person, we have a media lecturer, and we also have a medical doctor. And as my colleague, Dr. Mbene said, don't forget to fill out our questionnaire. We aim to hopefully to try and ensure that from the response you give back to us, we'll make sure that we'll see how this is actually meeting the needs of the community. We seem to have focused a lot more today at the graduate level, but we want to reassure people that we're also looking at the undergraduate, how some of those students who are still at level of A levels about to enter university. We're also looking at all those areas. And we want to thank everyone. There's a whole range of people are looking at the screen. People have been approaching us from all over the globe, from Canada, US, Cameroon, East Africa, UK, mainland Europe. It's about time that I should invite the chairperson of CamDocUK and the person of Dr. Linda Bello to close this session. On my part, Chief Asa'ah, or Fosengon Fontaine, or Alaji, I'll go on and on and on and on and on. No.
Hello, good evening. Sorry for the noise. I'm currently in an airport. It was really a wonderful first inaugural session. I'd like to thank all of our speakers for their very insightful presentations today. I'm also a GP, so I learned very much from Dr. Sandrine's presentation, and everything she said really resonated with me. It was also lovely to hear from Professor Ayisi about her career, and last but not least, Dr. Mendi about his experiences in the finance department. So it was really a lots of different specialties, lots of different careers, and I'm glad that you can see that here at CamDocUK, we're not only focused on our profession, medics. We're happy to mentor people from all walks of life. We're happy to have collaborations with people, as Professor Ayisi was saying, she was hoping to do more with us. She is already doing more with us today, and we're very grateful for her time. I'd like to thank Dr. Mbene for obviously her help in the background, for her co-moderation, and obviously Chief Asa'ah for this brilliant idea. So thank you so much. Apologies again for the noise, but I'm currently in transit, so sorry again about that. We will be continuing this, as Dr. Asa'ah said, and we hope that you have filled in the survey and tell us what you'd like to hear about next. We're here for you. We're here to educate the community. Thank you very much.